Hey guys, I want to be talking about the latest changes to the meta for Fallout Shelter Online GvE. This is after Cosmos was released on servers last week. So, with about a week under our belts, or I guess you could say 18 solid proper attempts, the verdict right now is that KLEO, his best attachment is OI and not CZG, or rather, because we're only 1 week in, and the idea that you might potentially need a second CZG set for GvE means that a lot of players right now just don't have a fully Chev2 enclaved set. Right now, because it looks like Cosmos, the best set for him, is not CZG but actually SA. A lot of people right now are scrambling to get a second SA set built. Anyway, I just want to focus first off on the team and the equipment necessary. So, in my case, Inspector, she's wearing Wasteland Apothecary, and for her substats and remake stats, she has damage and HP. I mentioned this in my other video when I was talking about the previous meta on YouTube, but the idea for substats and remake stats is that you want to have the least amount of resistance and defense as possible, because, for example, if there is any incidental damage by the bosses that they would do to your team, the ability for that member to absorb that damage as much as possible is only going to help increase their AP that much faster. So yeah, you really want to minimize how much resistance and defense you have, so damage HP is very nice. Normally, this is my Morowski PvP set, but this is Inspector's GvE set. Next, KLEO. So my KLEO 10, so I did mention, for example, that for remake, for OI gear, there is no such thing as damage for a substat, though it exists obviously for a remake stat, as you can see here. So remake, damage, and crit, but for substat, critical, and then something else. In this case, the preference is HP over resistance or defense for what I had just mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, as you can see, some of my equipment, I can't get HP. It's kind of hard for OI, so I just need better luck, and then I'll convert these over. Next, this is a holdout from the previous meta, but Roach King, substats, remake stats, damage, and crit is the best. Originally, I had a Chev 1 level 5 damage HP CZG set, and the biggest contribution to Roach King's damage is crit, and this is because his luck is 6, and even though I have full substat remake crit, he only has a crit rating of 9,804. The ceiling for effective crit rating is around 14k, and so you can't give Roach King enough crit on your set, so you need as much as possible. Next, Preston. So Preston, previous meta, was wearing SA. That doesn't change here. However, as you can see here, Preston's set is not fully Chev 2 level 5 enclaved, and that's because out of Preston and Cosmos, it's Cosmos that actually deals more damage, and so the stronger set is supposed to go to Cosmos. So I hope to, over the next few weeks, finish off this last piece of gear. But Preston, he's wearing my Doom PvP set. So as you can see, for him, its damage and HP is fine. Obviously, if you were to create a dedicated GvE set, damage and for SA as a substat, crit does not exist. So you would only be able to get damage and HP, or if you were a super hardcore GvE player, you could get damage and hit rating as your substat, and as your remake stat, you want to get damage and crit. But this set I've made for David, and so yeah, I didn't want to do that, so this is the second best thing. The reason why this gear here is damage and crit for the remake is because once it gets up to level 5, I'm going to pass it off to Cosmos. And then finally Cosmos. So on him right now is, as you can see here, damage HP for substat, and then for remake, damage and crit. Again, like I mentioned just a few moments ago, once the level 0 gear, Chev 2 level 0 gear becomes level 5, I'll switch out the boots with Preston. And the reason why he's wanting this level 4 Chev 2 gear instead of the level 5 Chev 2 gear is because this one actually has crit on it, and it's almost level 5. So tomorrow I'll hit level 5, put it on here, and then Cosmos will be ready for Wednesday. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Roach King that the effective crit rating for players is around 14k. That being said, obviously you can go beyond 14k. The effective crit rating essentially means that for each additional crit, you are getting less and less value out of that crit if you were to, for example, spec into damage. But because everything I have is damage and crit, and we're talking about GvE here, you know, if it was PvP, you'd probably want to, instead of getting crit, get like HP or something like that. But in GvE world, it's just best to have lots of damage and lots of crit. So yeah, that's what's happened here. So yeah, that's the gear. And then let's just talk about quickly an update on Team Manual. So when I was talking about Team Manual before, I was saying that the best thing you can do is Good Neighbor. And Good Neighbor, the reason why it's really good is because of the skill level for the faction. While you're damaging the enemy, there is a certain amount of chance of dealing an additional 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 attack damage depending upon your skill level. What wasn't known at the time when I was making that video was the fact that another huge contributing factor to damage is not just the Good Neighbor skill level, it's also crit damage. The awesome thing about Nuka World and the event that came out is the amount of clarions you can actually get out of there. So GvG is a great source of clarions. Another source is 3v3, it's so-so, and another source is basically doing your weekly 5 participations in Zenith. But way more than the latter two is Nuka World. Like, I've been getting a lot of clarions, and in the past week, I've essentially been able to increase my crit rating damage percentage from 29 to 39. And probably by tomorrow it's going to be 40 or 41%, and that's just had huge effect on my numbers. So without further ado, let's go to the video. Okay. So this is going to be Mirelurk Queen. So yeah, like I was mentioning before, In the case of the boss, at the very beginning of battle, as soon as the screen shows up, happens to be a level where the boss is really close to the starting point of your dwellers. And so when that happens, the screen starts to move immediately. Like, you don't have to run to the edge of the screen to move over, and then it pans to the boss. The screen starts panning right away. In order to try to maximize your DPS as much as possible, you want to hit the pause button as soon as you get in. And then as the game is paused, the screen is still moving. And so you're actually saving about 1 to 2 seconds and getting just that much extra time to do damage on the boss. And so that's what I'm doing here. So as you saw, KLEO, his OI is activated. So that's what's happening right now. And unlike previous meta, it's only KLEO that has OI. And so I'm counting here for 6 roaches to spawn. And unfortunately, only a few roaches spawned, so I didn't get the necessary 6, and that's why I'm resetting. And so I pause again. KLEO goes off. There's 1 roach. Only 1 roach so far. So yeah, 1 roach. So that was awful luck. So I reset it again. We go pause the screen. At the boss, KLEO goes off. 2 roaches. 3, 4 roaches. 5, 6 roaches. Now, this is a good attempt. And so I'm going for it now. In the previous meta, you were always waiting on Piper. Now, Piper is out. And because the only person that has WA is Inspector, you're always waiting on Inspector. Now, the other thing here is that KLEO is activating his OI around the 148 to 147 mark. 158 to 157 mark. And the buff that KLEO casts on your party to do additional damage, it has a 15-second refresh rate. And so if you work that backwards, what you're trying to do is make sure that Inspector, by 142, is able to cast her ability again, because you're doing a party-wide sync at that time. So what I tried to show is here. So look, it's stuck on Inspector. But yeah, as you could see at 142, Roach King was not ready. But even if he was, you were going to bypass him. And so you're only enabling the special of Cosmos, Inspector, Preston, and KLEO. Now, 142 is very important. And the, I guess, difficult thing about this meta is that if you do 142 and you're like towards the earlier half of 143, 142, you're going to be successful, and the buff for damaging the boss is going to stay on. If you're towards the second half of the 143 to 142, so closer to the lower end of 142, unfortunately the buff is going to drop, and it's going to cause your stacks to reset, and the damage that you're going to do to the boss is going to be different by about 100 million. It's insane. It happened to me earlier this week. So here we go again, waiting on Inspector, and boom. As you guys can see here at the top, I'm actually, like I mentioned this in my previous video, but I'm holding down my finger on the auto sync button. There's a faster response time that you have to just let go of your finger than you do to have your finger hovering above the auto sync button and then like letting it go again. And then the other thing that you're trying to do, because Inspector is always the last person to get her AP charged, you're not waiting for her portrait to light up. You're waiting for the AP gauge to start moving up towards the charge up, like just a split second before, so that you're shaving off as much time as possible. Like you're essentially trying to maximize the amount of DPS that you can do on the boss. So as you can see, waiting on Inspector, and I'd let go just before the portrait filled up. Now, you know you're doing really good when, similar to the previous meta, you essentially do a party-wide sync at 105. So I hit 105 and I'm great. There you go. The wonderful thing about this meta compared to the previous meta was that you're just always waiting on Inspector. With the previous meta, depending upon the boss you were facing and depending upon the positioning of the LU, it was kind of hard to gauge whether or not you were, trying to wait on Piper or whether or not you were sometimes trying to wait on someone else in the group. For this meta, it's always Inspector, and it doesn't seem to matter right now the positioning of your LU. Okay. Just a side mention here. So the last party-wide sync was at here we go, last party-wide sync. 4 seconds, I believe. 5 seconds, apologies. 5 seconds is really good. What's happening here is, so 5 seconds, and then all of your dwellers start to do their special. There was this kind of like a holdover from the previous meta. You essentially hit the pause screen. So similar to the beginning of battle, where you're hitting the pause screen in order for behind the pause screen the camera to start moving over towards the boss and saving seconds. You're using the pause screen here to make sure that any animations, essentially any specials that are in motion, are able to finish during that last split second, so that once you take the pause button off, and the best thing is to wait for about 4 full seconds, you'll see after I close this that the animations will be done for the specials, and the damage that is attributed to those animations that happen behind this tips screen, you'll see the damage pop up. And so this is a way to, again, because of KLEO and how the order of battle goes, where at the beginning of battle you're not doing that much, but at the end of battle you're doing quite a bit. You're actually able to eke out several million damage by doing this trick. So I'll just roll it back again so you see. So you actually get to 0, you hit split second pause. I do it here for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then I let go and look at all those damage numbers afterwards. And so yeah. Oh, let me just show you the damage. Oops. Took some screens. So similar to before, Roach King is your king for damage, but behind him is Cosmos. Now, right now, I don't have a full crit damage set for Cosmos, but I'm already doing 181 million damage. And Preston couldn't really do near that amount when he had the full set. And so yeah, Cosmos is really good, and he's probably going to be able to get up to 185, 190 if he has a proper damage crit set. And then from the team manual, as I up the crit damage percentage, he's going to do even more, because if you max out crit damage percentage increase from team manual, you can get up to 60% additional crit damage. What I'm referring to is if you look here on the stats, the crit multiplier. So anytime you do a crit, the multiplier will go up by 120%, and you have the ability to, like right now I said that my plus crit damage is 39%. So instead of 120%, it's 159% that I'm doing for each crit attack. So yeah, it's huge. But yeah, guys, there you have it. Doing 651, and that was actually based upon this morning when I was doing the battle. My chess piece here was actually level 1 Chev 2, and then yeah, because of Nuka World, and then because of Monday rolling over, there were a lot of items to purchase for enclaves. But yeah, it's crazy how quickly we're able to enclave our sets during the Halloween event and Nuka World event. So we'll see what we can get next week. Maybe we'll eventually be able to bust the 700 million barrier. So yeah, good luck, guys, with Cosmos. He's a really good character for GvE, obviously, but you're really only able to do better than the previous meta if you have a lot of enclaved gear. So that's the huge caveat with him. As for PvP, I am starting to see him a little bit more in a few of the different rosters, but he's quite a gamble simply because his attacks, like Preston, are to random players in the enemy comp. Anyway, hope you guys have a good evening, and I'll see you again in a different video. Bye-bye.